picking up better than that one? That's what I thought. Okay, so I'll give this one to you after the question. The question is, what was the challenge? What was the challenge before you that required a new way of thinking? And Rebecca, this is a 2-minute one. All right. What was the challenge that required a new way of thinking?
So in Valley Forge, I'd say, generally speaking, the challenge was a lack of hospitality and openness to others. The transition, the uncertainty, it had really worn down the church. And I think it's only natural when that happens for so much energy to turn inward. And so that was a presenting issue in a number of different layers of relationship at Valley Forge. Of course, again, with exception, there are some wonderful, caring, unbelievably hospitable people there. But in general, as a culture, it had kind of turned inward on itself. And so some of the presenting issues were a lack of energy and fellowship time, and not a lot of spirit of welcome around young and noisy children, which had taken its toll on worship attendance, and just attrition and lack of participation and lack of positive energy. So that's the challenge.
So in 2015, Kirkwood merged with Camp Rainer and Lehigh Presbyterian. That's this conversation that had been going on for 20 years or longer before that. The two camp properties were actually probably less than a mile from each other and had operated for two different presbyteries completely independently of each other. So we were looking at how to fully merge these two cultures. Both presbyteries are very different, all children of God, and represent the diversity therein. In addition, I'm sure a lot of you with both Kirkwood and other camps have heard rumblings of generational change and cultural change, and people are not as friendly to camps anymore. People that think that camps don't have as much to offer, that they're too old-fashioned. We've had to deal with everything from the geography challenges of coming from Montgomery County or Chester, practically on the Delaware border, an hour and 45 minutes to our property in the Poconos. We've had to deal with people who are very worried about the Catholic Church sex abuse scandal, and so don't want to put their kids anywhere for a week where they're not supervised. Really have just had to do a lot of re-education and thinking about what is our place and how do we minister both to our community where we're at in the Poconos and also still be relevant to communities in Philadelphia and everywhere in between.
My challenge was trying to figure out how to engage my community and the community of caregivers in an interesting way without scaring off those who were or who are unchurched, because this is a faith-based community. And in addition to that, how do I locate the caregivers, and how do I make this caregiver society interesting enough for people to come out and want to genuinely participate in it? Chester, what I found out is a lot of people base their participation on things that are familiar to them, and by word of mouth. So if something is new, even though it may be beneficial, it takes a little longer for people to warm up to whatever this new organization or program is. They wait until other people go, ask about it, and then slowly but surely they'll come around.
So one of our more recent challenges at Beacon has been that our context in Kensington is a post-industrial context, which is not, uncommon or unheard of in Philadelphia. For a long time, it was the textile center of the world, and so industry and factory work and working with your hands was a big part of the culture of our neighborhood. As those factories left and as jobs left, and as poverty kind of moved in, a lot of distrust of institutions grew, and a lot of people who might have been raised Catholic were no longer comfortable in a Catholic setting, but still weren't quite sure what to do with their spirituality. So we created worship at Beacon and our programs at Beacon with those particular people in mind. People who were perhaps had only been in a church to be baptized as infants, and that's it. Completely unchurched, do not understand our languages of prayer and illumination and diversity and all of those things that we don't really use in our common conversation. And although we had welcomed those people into worship, and there are still some of those people with us, the neighborhood has been changing a lot as it becomes developed. And so there's a lot more new residents coming in who are interested in a different background. They often have higher education, they might be working in Center City, still dealing with a significant level of financial instability because of student debt and that kind of thing. But so there's some commonalities there, but there's a ton of difference. And those people often had given church a shot and had been really burned by their experience in their young adult years. And so they're coming to church with a familiarity, a longing for some of that structure and tradition, but also a church that actually does what it says it's about. That we don't just talk about it on Sunday, but we walk the walk all week long. So what does it look like to craft worship and programming for a totally different group of people than what you had in mind when you began, and how that transition can happen? That's been one of our challenges right now.
So, before they go to this next piece, which is interesting, do you feel themes that are familiar in your ministry? I mean, because this isn't only about them. This is about them sharing reality with which they have wrestled. So, I'm going to start this way. So, Becky, you kind of started some of it. So, how did you approach the challenge of the changing demographic and all the other things that you named?
Sure. I really appreciated what Brian said in his initial kind of bio about nonprofit work and how that has kind of, he's been surprised to find that helping him in ministry. That's also my background, and in a nonprofit world, there really isn't time to spend thinking about things. You have to kind of try stuff and see what happens. And throw that spaghetti against the wall and see what sticks, and be comfortable with that level of possibility of failure, that what you're going to do is not going to work out, and you're going to have to recalibrate and rethink and go forward. And so we have always had that approach to work at Beacon, whether it's a particular program or the overall vision of what we're doing there, and that's definitely been our case here in terms of, okay, well, yes, we have set a precedent for ourselves for the last few years. We've made worship in this particular fashion, that's rooted in a Presbyterian tradition but has some different language around it. But we don't have to stay here. There's no rule that says we have to call, this piece of liturgy, this piece of liturgy. Like there's room in our polity. It's beautiful how much room and creativity there is in our polity and the Book of Common Worship for accommodation for people of different spiritual needs. And so that's a lot of the conversations we're having right now, is that, okay, we crafted this for this group of people. These are the people who have shown up. And so what do these people need? And how can we think of these and gather that data from them in a way that's really easy, so like a survey or something like that, but also talk to our leadership team. And what can we experiment with and try and see if that kind of gets us to a different spot. So experimentation and a comfort level with failure, which is really easy for people to say. I just want to admit that. Like it's okay, cool, yeah, no big deal. But it's really hard to try something and have it totally flunk and to feel like, okay, I was totally wrong, and where in the world is God leading us, and what is going on? Over the Holy Week, I kept thinking about the women who stayed at the cross, and in Matthew's Gospel, that scene ends with the women sitting opposite the tomb. We don't actually see them leave. We know that they do because they have to come back, but the way that if it were a movie, it would fade to black with those women sitting outside the tomb. And so I've been talking a lot about keeping vigil and how sometimes that's our job in the midst of this stuff is to show up and be present and wait and watch and see where God leads us, and be willing to take that step, even if it makes no sense to us whatsoever. And so that's been really on our mind and has been a guiding help for us so far.
So after I originally thought that locating caregivers would be easy because I was the caregiver and I had come into direct contact with other caregivers, assisting family members, I realized that I was completely wrong. So just because shared my vision with them, and they said that they would love to be a part of my vision. It didn't happen that way. So I had to think of another way to locate these caregivers. I decided to create or host vision board parties that seem to be innovative and creative to the general public in addition to caregivers. So the vision board parties were open to the public, and from there I was able to pull out interested caregivers from those larger events in order for me to meet more intimately with the actual caregivers. In addition to that, I specified the different types of caregivers, people taking care of Alzheimer's patients, children living with special needs, the terminally ill, the temporarily ill, and just today, speaking with someone reminded me of adults living with special needs. So thank you, again, thank you for that. So as a result of that, it has worked out much better than my original plan.
Yeah, I mean, in our context, we run on a cycle. It's the opposite of the school cycle, and for a lot of churches, the church cycle. When y'all are winding down for the season, we're gearing up. It is that time of the season right now, and so the easiest thing for us to do, just to figure things out, is to run summer camp. Summer camp is a great ministry where we bring in not only kids but young adults, and we live in a community together, and that showed us a lot of things. We found out that 50% of our campers had no connection to Presbyterian Church at all. And so, moving forward, our curriculum, which used to assume some faith knowledge, because what we were doing was more or less Sunday school in the woods. It's true. I know what we do. We are now moving to something that's a little bit more basic. And we are teaching kids about who Jesus is instead of assuming that they already know who he is, because they don't. We are teaching them that it's their Bible, not our Bible. We are teaching them that this is their church and not just a Presbyterian thing or a Kirkwood thing or a Poconos thing. This is for everybody. And so what does that look like? That looks like adventure camps where we are canoeing and using this as a tool, not just for a wild time on the river, but for healing kids that have anxiety, or for healing kids who have confidence issues, or for healing kids who don't have a place in their church. Our own program director, who I think is already on the road, which is great. I don't know if I asked him permission to tell this story, but one of the most formative things that ever happened to him in church was he was an usher for the first time, and he got yelled at for wearing flip-flops. Okay? And we're capable of this, right? We're all capable of this. If I was a stressed out pastor, I imagine that that's something I might be capable of without thinking. And so, just in this messy version of a community where it is okay to fail, it's okay for us to model that too, and to tell our kids, yeah, well, you know what, last year we tried this camp and it didn't work out really well, we're going to try something new this year. Or, why did we remove this program? Well, we found out that it wasn't really really girding our mission correctly. And so in terms of failure and success, I mean, it's really just about urgency and moving forward. We've had a lot of failures, but a lot of successes.
So at Valley Forge, the first thing we had to do was, with honesty and humility and with faith, admit that what we were doing wasn't working. We had to make that confession. We had to admit that this canoe wasn't serving us as well as it once did. And if we were having trouble being hospitable to ourselves, then this was not going to be a church that was going to be hospitable to the world around us. So we started to do two things in parallel. By God's sovereignty, I feel like I'm not smart enough to be on a panel in front of people. This was God's doing and not mine. But one thing we started doing was working on our canoe, and in our canoe. So we did some things to build hospitality as more of a focus within our life together. Within the known patterns of the Sunday morning routine. And so we looked at who we were trying to reach with hospitality and why, and how we could do that within the confines of our canoe. And so we looked at a lot of our spaces and tried to look at them with fresh eyes. Instead of just seeing how we've always done things, we tried to see how we can do new things in the same spaces in different ways. And so we did things like opening up our narthex area, which was a few disjointed spaces that didn't really serve hospitality well. We opened that up so that that could function more as a place of hospitality to one another. We heard the stories of the young parents with loud children not feeling welcome, and so we got permission from worship Elder Betsy Devlin, who's in the back there, to rip out our front pew, and we put in an area for children so they can worship with us. A sign to all that the sanctuary is a sanctuary for our children and not from them. We looked around and we realized that, unlike this church, we don't have a bathroom everywhere. And so we realized that for someone who had trouble with mobility, it was a real challenge for them to find a restroom and still participate in our life together. So we cashed out some bonds we had from selling the manse in the 60s and traded our manse for a handicap accessible restroom on the main level right outside the sanctuary. We also took our chapel space, the original sanctuary of Valley Forge, and reimagined it as a place of gathering and hospitality, in part due to an initiative that we're still seeking to push through the Covenant Grant Program, but also just for in and of ourselves, a place to meet that wasn't sterile, but a place to meet where there was some warmth and we could sit down and be together and just feel the hospitality in the room. So we worked on our canoe, so that we got used to the heart level hospitality being important to us. To help thaw us out a little bit, those hearts that have gone a little bit cold from being scared and all that transition and becoming negative and being resistant. Also, Mike and Betsy and a few others were commissioned by the session to be a long-term visioning working group. We absolutely had to enter into discernment, a long season of discernment, to wrestle with the idea that as much as we might dress up our canoe, that there are limits to its effectiveness moving forward. And so while we're being faithful to ourselves in the canoe together, we have to start to discern what's going to happen when it comes time to set that down. And so we've been meeting monthly for almost a year now, and we'll continue to do so until we have some clarity from God as to how Valley Forge is going to move forward with hospitality and as a church seeking to be for the sake of its neighborhood in the name of Jesus Christ. And one of the major questions that we're going to wrestle with in Valley Forge, and I'm assuming that this is a major question for many other of our congregations in this presbytery, is what does it mean that we have evolved over time from a large church in a large facility to a small church in a large facility? What does it mean that the people to canoe ratio is a lot different now? And it is sustainable for now, but not for much longer. And how are we best stewards of our ministry moving forward? Maybe the canoe we have, as we have known it for decades, is not the best tool for that job. So what do we need to trade it for? How do we need to evolve again? And so the hands-on piece at the local level to reshape hearts and attitudes, but also beginning that work of entering into the wilderness and discernment is how we have begun to face that challenge.
Thank you.
Just one.
Okay, thank you. As they consider the last question that we posed, if you have any questions, there are little cards in your rows that you can write on, and then we'll collect them as they're reflecting on these last questions. As you can see, it's interesting. My heart's deeply moved because we have a traditional church, right? It's a traditional church that's wrestling with what it means to be faithfully relevant today. We have Tommy reclaiming a ministry that, frankly, when I came on board, I was told I was going to have to shut it down. We have a community ministry in a community partnering with the church that's struggling with poverty and economics and all that means in a food desert and all the other challenges before them. And then we have changing economic reality. So the final question is, so what fruit or benefits are you observing from your communities at this point? And then think about this in your last word. What would you say to your peers and colleagues as words of encouragement based on your journey? So what benefits, if any, are you yielding at this point? Where do you see movement in any direction? Tim, why don't you start?
Sure. Also, one more thing we did that I forgot to mention in the last question is we had a kitchen that was original in 1962 to the building, and we had some funds set aside for that were there without vision for a long time. And we used that and some other grant monies to turn our kitchen into a smaller kitchen for us and a food pantry for the community as well. An intentional step out into the community that also was still about our canoe itself. So the benefits that we've seen is we are getting stronger together in the canoe. So our Narthex is now a place of greater welcome. We still have a lot to learn about hospitality. We still have a lot of healing to do after some tough years, but now we have a tool for it. We have a place and a tool for it that we didn't have before. The Children's Corner has been a success, despite those who still grumble in the back view because kids make noise. But that's been a great offering to those who come and see that, and it says what it needs to say very clearly. The chapel, that space has been a great place for us, fellowship and meeting times. It's helped us to feel more connected to one another as we've been in meetings. We haven't been forced into strange and sterile spaces, but there's a good spirit in the room there. The kitchen and the pantry has been really helpful in beginning ever so slightly to turn our focus outward. It's still about us, but at the same time, it's inviting the congregation to see something beyond themselves. But all these things, with humility and honesty, we still admit that those are still just about the canoe. Having that children's area, I was thinking about this on the drive here. It's like putting a car seat in the canoe. It's more fitting for kids today. It's a safe place for them, but they're still in the canoe, and there's still only so far that the canoe's going to go. We may have broadened the canoe or made put a better restroom in it, or we have better music on the stereo system in the canoe, but we're still in the canoe. It's making us stronger. We're working intentionally toward that strength, but at some point we're going to have to set it down and step out of it. And so that's where this long-term discernment is so crucial. Without that, we have no foot forward toward what that future is going to be. And so there's benefit to what we've done, and that is making us stronger, but the fruit is yet to come. It's just seeds that we're planting through discernment. And so we don't know what that's going to be. We're wrestling with a couple really general ideas for how we can reimagine our campus and reimagine what God is doing in and through that resource and that asset that we stored for the sake of the kingdom and not just for the sake of ourselves. But we don't know what it's going to become. We don't know what help we're going to need. We know we're going to need the input of our neighborhood as those who are, the Sacagaweas of our story, those who aren't already in the canoe with us, those who don't share the same assumptions that we do. We're going to have to open our ears to those who live in the world that we're trying to make our way through now. And so we're going to have to find a way to do that, to build a relationship with those who are in our neighborhood and are not part of our canoeing caravan, and then work in partnership with them toward this goal that we see beyond us. Can we put a compelling vision out there for them that we're actually us and them, not us and them. We're just us and we're headed in the same direction, and we need their help just as much as they need ours. So if there's any one word of encouragement, it's to be honest and humble about the fact that as fancy or as well endowed as your canoe might be, it is going to run out in terms of its effectiveness someday. And it is time to discern what we are going to do in all of our towns and contexts when the canoe no longer does what it needs to do for God's sake.
Yeah, it is just it's interesting to hear the themes that are coming out from here and the correlation Revelations. But I mean, for us, there's a strong precedent in the Bible for people going into the wilderness for discernment. Moses spent 40 years away from the pharaohs, but not everybody can do that eating wild locusts and honey like John the Baptist, right? There needs to be a little bit more. And so, just some of the things that we've seen is not only are some people who had stopped coming back, but we actually, are doing ministry and having them here. And that took a lot. I mean, I grew up at camps that no longer operate. And so I grew up as a teenager who was ready to grow up in the Presbyterian Church, that we were cutting funding and the board this and the Presbyterian this and the Synod and these camps were closing and there was a lot of animosity in those conversations. And part of our success is because there are congregations who never forgot about us, continue to have hope. The Presbytery has been instrumental in making sure that we have what we need to move forward. Because of our Presbytery support and congregational giving over the last 2 years, we put $30,000 in the bank that is going back into our property. We hadn't bought or done anything for our summer campers in over 10 years. And I'm not talking about, a zip line, amusement park, get kids in through the door stuff. I'm talking about stuff that is providing kids the ability to do things at home. We put in a disc golf course, which I love disc golf. I hope you play disc golf too. It costs almost nothing, and there are parks everywhere around here. I've met our summer staff after leaving the Presbytery office over at Fort Washington and played that course. It's a great time. Kids are learning skills through that they never thought they'd have. We put in a giant's ladder, which is a high ropes exercise, but it's a paired high ropes exercise. When you go down a zip line, that's just you. I hope it's fun. There's a lot of things that you can tie into faith with that, like overcoming your fears. But when we send two people up together, that's a partnership. That's a small community. And when we have people in groups who don't talk to each other from different communities and they're going up together, they're pulling themselves up and trying to get up 50 feet in the air, that's a whole different story than just a zip line. And that happened because of people in this congregation, because we're working together. And so in terms of that encouragement, I mean, if you want to get to the statistics, statistically our program has been shown across denominations to make kids want to go to church more, want to be more active in church, want to have more faith conversations at home, feel better about themselves. So that's the statistics, but we are you. You fund us, if not directly, through mission giving, and the Presbytery, as I said, has been super instrumental in helping us move forward. We want your youth. We want your groups. We want them to have time to come into the wilderness and discern in a different context, and to learn more about the outdoors and creation care, and learn more about themselves and get closer to God. We are here for that. There are different things that we are moving forward with. We just hired a program director, thankfully, because of our last couple of good years, and so we're going to start rolling out new programming that hopefully we'll be able to get all the way down here in Philadelphia, as well as have some different things going on camp. But honestly, we are all members of this kingdom of God, and we all need to work together. So in terms of the words of encouragement, we're on the same team. We are not trying to trick you in sending your kids to camp so we can get your money. We believe in Jesus Christ. You do too. Let's see what we can do together.
So I'm moving into my second year as a resident at TMT, and so this first year has been slow but steady, and I have been able to see a lot of positive results from feedback that I've received from caregivers. One in particular, a woman who attended a vision board party back in March. I had a guest speaker come up from Washington, D.C. to talk about finances, and she founded this movement called the Dual Career Movement. In case something happens to you and you lose your job, what are you going to do about money? So one of the attendees, she had an idea that she wanted to start a side business, and she approached the guest speaker. The guest speaker was able to give her some advice on this business, and as of 2 weeks ago, she is now a licensed or registered notary republic from that vision board party. So that right there is a major goal for me, because with the Caregivers Society, I want to inspire and empower them. I've gotten a lot of feedback and thanks for hosting the events. I've gotten a lot of suggestions from the attendees, which was not happening early on. I see that excitement in their faces. I've also have been requested to host the vision board parties at other places. I'm trying to bring them to our church, but at other places. So I think the word of encouragement that I could give is that you just have to keep going, and I would say to look at things as opportunities. It may look as if something is not going your way, but look at that as an opportunity and not necessarily something negative, because positive things can come out of new opportunities. You just have to look at it in a different way.
So Beacon is a new worshiping community, which in other circles will be called a church plant. And I will confess to you that when I was graduating from Princeton a decade ago, I thought that church planting was really silly. Like, we have all these broken churches, like, why aren't we fixing those guys, you know? Why would we do a new thing somewhere else when we have all these buildings that are standing empty? And we should always be asking, how are we using our spaces for the glory of God? Like, that's still a good question to be asking. But what I found was that for whatever reason, creating and innovating and rethinking spaces was kind of my home in this denomination. And that's where I found myself. And there is a pattern or a dynamic in church planting where if a church plant is to kind of stick around for a while, you'll hear church planters say, well, we've actually planted the same church like 3 or 4 times. So we started in this one thing, and then we had to redo it again, or everyone moved away, or that kind of thing. And one of the ways in which Beacon feels a little bit like a more traditional church, in my view, is that sometimes it takes us a while to realize that we're in the middle of something, that like we can kind of see something on the horizon, like God is calling us toward, whether it's chartering or reconfiguring staffing or whatever the situation is. And we're like, okay, cool, we see it, we're prepping for it, like, okay, we're on board, like, we're gonna get there. And then God shows up and he's like, actually, that's today we're gonna do that, not next year. So we need to figure this out, like, right now. And I will be candid and say, when I was realizing how much of a shift we are being called to do right now, I really wondered, am I still the right person for this job? Like, am I called to plant again in the same spot? And B, this is really disheartening, because when you are restarting things, you're usually starting them from a place that either looks like lack or opportunity. And so, depending on your mindset, that's kind of where you find yourself. And so it's been a difficult season lately for me personally as a pastor to kind of like walk through this and figure out what in the world is going on. And so the 2 things that have been really fruitful in the midst of this process. One is that when I was talking about keeping vigil earlier, one of my elders who's here with me today came up to me after worship service and said, you know, you were talking about that and it really stuck with me, and I feel like that's what we're doing right now, like at Beacon. Like, we're keeping vigil. Like, we don't understand what's going on, like God is leading us forward and there's still work to be done here. There's still a need in this place, in this neighborhood, but we're not really sure what's going on. And that was really helpful to me. And for her to hear that and reflect that and kind of integrate that was actually super comforting to me. Not only that people are paying attention when I'm talking, that's always nice, but that, you know, there was kind of a picking up on this thread that was resonant to them. And then the other fruit has been, as I have kind of chosen to and felt sometimes, you know, a little forced to delegate more of what I'm doing and delegate more of this vision and mission building piece. It's really beautiful to see people step into that work and use their gifts for building community. So I, you know, joke that I never leave a session meeting like wondering why we just spent that time together. Like, it's never, it feels like a unicorn. I'm not, like, I'm just, and no offense to like session meetings everywhere, but like it's tough, right? Sometimes we get stuck in these like weird details that don't really matter. And you know, in our conversations, we're brainstorming possible solutions and experiments, and there's people who are saying, you know, I'll give that a shot, or let me take that, or I'm willing to do that. Can I give that a shot? And that has been really encouraging to me to see people kind of, when you make the room for people to exercise their gifts for the good of the community and for God, like they do it. Like we're, you know, like you have a personal invitation that recognizes someone's gifts and you give them a space to step into it. That is ministry. You know, that is such a beautiful part of this work that you don't have to be a pastor to be a part of that. You know, like you don't have to have that particular designation. And so I guess as a word of encouragement is just to remember that there's gifts in the room, and that while we may see lack or see, you know, idiosyncrasies or personality traits that might be hard to do life together with sometimes, what's really there is a beloved child of God with unique talents and skills, you know, that they're using in the world, and that they've chosen to invest in this church for, you know, whatever reason. And it's our job as elders and pastors to kind of shepherd that well and to celebrate those and to give them space in which to grow. Not just, you know, as a side effect, you know, there's encouragement for the whole body, but I think the main goal is that when you do that, that's when community really grows and people really start to live into their vocation in a beautiful way. So, thanks.
I don't know if there were any cards. If there are, great. We have time. If you could get them, Steve, the cards. And as we get the cards, you were talking about context and presence and this congregation. Back in 1809, it was the Market Square congregation around the corner. That was the mother congregation of this church. And as you would think for Germantown, their worship services were in German. And the young upstarts, the kids of the people in the community back then, wanted a church where folks would have the service in English. That's what led to this congregation being born. And as you can imagine, with a 45% African descendant demographic now, it has continued to change. Any other cards? All right, I don't know if I have time for all, but let's see. One or two. And of course, they give me three, so whoever I don't read, don't get upset at me. Are there ways that you have translated quote-unquote church talk into other quote-unquote languages?
So this is kind of what I was referencing when I said that we built the worship service around people who were unchurched. And I say we, and that was myself and my co-pastor Karen, were both of us English majors, both of us super like into words and how they can be evocative and helpful. And so we sat down with the Book of Common Worship and a blank sheet of paper and said, okay, we have the call to worship, we have the call to, confession, assurance, scripture, sermon, all these things. Does any of this make sense to someone who's never come to church before? And sometimes it does, right? Like they have a sense of like scripture, it's kind of a holy text. But we started by kind of renaming some of the pieces of liturgy, even though we kept the same flow of a worship service. So we would call scripture the story with like a capital S, because that's our formative story that we all find ourselves in. We would call the sermon a story within a story. The fact that this story that we're telling is supposed to illuminate us and connect us to the story, capital S, that matters to us. The confession we called laying down our burdens, because so many people have such a deep, like weird, negative connotation with confession, that if we could make space for what that is really supposed to feel like for people, like when you are honest with God and you finally let all that stuff go and you accept the grace of God in your life, you're like, wow, I'm actually free. Like this is amazing. Like that's kind of what's happening in that moment. So those are just a couple of examples of like things that are kind of communicating the spirit of what's happening in a different language. Now we're looking at kind of a hybrid of like something that people can relate to in terms of like, I've been to another church and they call it confession. And so how can we kind of bridge those gaps between people who still walk through the door and have no idea what we're talking about, but other people who need that touch point, that piece of familiarity because they're coming from an Episcopal tradition or something else like that. So, did anyone else want to take a shot?
example, I think one time we were speaking about love, and when it says love is patient, love is kind, I said, well, let's replace love with your name or someone that you know and say, you know, Kearni is patient, Kearni is kind, so that they would be able to relate to it in a different type of way, particularly those who are a little intimidated by church.
Actually, I think the other two cards, eventually, are kind of been answered. One was about what have you learned that's been effective in reaching out to those who have been disillusioned in church, and have you been able to sustain their interest? I think you've spoken to that. And the other question was more of a nuts and bolts question for Tommy in particular, the age that you take kids at Kirkwood and how much does it cost? So, if you can do that in 10 seconds. Oh, yeah, did you have another word?
Add something to the first thing you said. So the question about how do you reach out to people who've been disillusioned by church? I just want to just really briefly say a huge part of that is acknowledging that a lot of people have experienced like actual psychological trauma at the hands of the church. And so when you pick your hymn or pick your illustration or your joke for your sermon or the way that we get together, the jokes that we tell, the things that we say matter, and there are people for whom that is going to be really difficult, and for whom they can't, like it's hard to even sit through a service, or a particular hymn has a weird, trigger for them. And yes, you can't anticipate every single thing, right? But what you can do is know your people so well, and if they're forthcoming with you about that particular issue, you can say, is there anything that for you is particularly difficult? Just the same way that we would do with an accessibility issue that might be physical, we can do that with mental and emotional issues as well. So be careful about our language, be gender inclusive with our language, be careful about the things and the illustrations that we choose so that people for whom have had a really hard time in church, they're not kind of re-injured inadvertently, sometimes by what we're talking about.
Thank you. I think folks can contact you or whatever, because it's not necessarily a 10-second answer to your question. Kirkwoodcamp.org for all your Kirkwood questions. Please help me in thanking them for being so valuable.